Glitch Production is leading the charge when it comes to not even just indie animation, but independent television as a whole. What once belonged in the realm of high corporate approval is now in the hands of the masses. And boy oh boy am I excited for this evolution of art. Their latest show, created by Dana Terrace of Owl House fame, John Owen, and Zach Marcus, Knights of Guinevere, just released today, and as you may imagine, I want to talk about it. Because if it's as great as the amazing Digital Circus, and with the very promising pilot it seems to be leaning that way, then I just know we're in for a wild ride. And before I start, just know this isn't going to be a minute-by-minute analysis of the pilot. We don't really do that around here, at least not normally. No. Instead, this video essay will have assumed you have seen Knights of Guinevere's brilliant pilot. We good on that? Okay. The core concept of the show seems to be a tale as old as time, unless I am just grossly misunderstanding the pilot. The rich are in a literal floating city in the sky, with the poor being relegated to the ruined landscape below. And while this concept becomes more and more topical in this late stage of capitalism, it's not exactly original. But what I find so fascinating about Knights is, well, it's Guinevere herself. The idea of having a sort of mascot for your corporate greed is just downright kinda evil. Like, you're both uniting and distracting the masses from your greed with one symbol. And Guinevere is certainly a symbol for this, being the mascot of the park where the rich seemingly play all day, a not so subtle allusion to, well, rich people. I don't have to tell you that their net worths are not emblematic of their contributions to society. For example, Elon Musk makes high-end cars and shoots rockets into space, while providing high-speed Wi-Fi to some. Sure, he should be worth a good chunk of change, but 1, he doesn't actually engineer these advancements at least most of the time, a discussion for another day, and 2, I don't believe he should be worth almost $500 billion for that. When you really think about it, it's a minuscule impact on humanity compared to others in history. Yet he is one of the richest people to ever live. To not distract from my main point too much, what I say this for is to show that, oftentimes, the rich live for their own self-pleasure, in a metaphorical amusement park of self-indulgence and fun. What Knights does, then, is simply make that amusement park very literal. And yet, at the end, it all comes back to Guinevere. She seems to be the only thing holding this corporate hellscape together, becoming something that those can yearn for. A lifestyle that is technically obtainable, that's where they get you. I liken this to the stories we were told, at least as an American, of great, wealthy people being raised in poverty, cleaning shoes, and eventually pulling themselves up by their bootstraps to do something important and make a shit ton of money with it. And again, the problems with these stories is that they aren't lies. These stories did happen, even if they are inflated to fit a certain narrative. And because they are technically attainable, they live on, immortalizes motivation for those at the bottom. But the reality is this: the odds of you ever becoming wealthy, like insanely wealthy, are so low. But these stories don't take that into account. They don't take into account the context that the gap between rich and poor grows wider every day, and that the barrier of entry is nigh impossible to breach. But to some, it doesn't matter, because these stories, even today, they exist. Sure, it takes a lot of luck and circumstance, but maybe you can be one of the lucky ones. So you'll grind every day, working yourself to the bone with your poster of Guinevere in the backdrop. After all, it all comes back to her. But Knights doesn't just stop there. No, it goes beyond. Because while Guinevere is a symbol and mascot there to provide comfort and a chance of a better life, it also takes that literally with her main characters, Frankie and Andy. They saw a real Guinevere android when they were younger, and they have held on to that memory for all this time. For years. They yearned for a life with her, and when Frankie finds an actual Guinevere, they want to fix her, not sell her for scraps like their boss Sparky. Frankie wants to use the Guinevere android for a better life. Andy does want to sell the android, which I feel may spark tension in future installments, but as of right now, Frankie does not. But, of course, what I find so interesting about Knights is that it seems like Guinevere is an expensive symbol. For the girl, locked up in a tower, given nothing from her father but the amusement park and a doll, building new Guineveres has become an obsession. Perhaps she has nothing but that symbol, maybe even friend, to hold on to. Again, it always comes back to Guinevere. There are tons of research areas, seemingly expensive ones at that, and it seems like their main purpose is to build more of the Guinevere androids. And I just find that fascinating. As I discussed in my mouthwashing analysis, linked in the description and end card of course, capitalism is an Ouroboros most of the time. It eats at itself with no apparent inherent value other than to produce, and better even, extract money from the masses. But this is no sustainable system, as, again, there is no value to be had here. What Knights does with this concept is combine it with the symbol of Guinevere. The very mascot of prosperity itself is a very expensive upkeep. I mean, the pilot goes out of its way just to say how much one of the broken androids would go for on the market. I see this as an allegory, one for all the different symbols out there, the ones that comfort us into a life of either conformity or endless grind. It is Mickey Mouse. A simple mouse that has inspired, I'm sure, hundreds of thousands of people into pursuing a career in film, without revealing how admittedly cruel and restrictive the industry can be. Just to get in is one thing, but making the art you want to create is a whole other. In a recent interview with Dana Terrace, she was essentially asked what makes Knights different from her other work. Her answer? It's actually fun. And I think that's all there is to say on that. I think that when you try so hard to keep up this facade of openness and pulling yourself up by your very own bootstraps, you come to find that people stop believing you. And when they stop believing you, you've lost the power. You no longer can take their ideas and societally claim them as your own. You can't restrict their advances to keep them in line right behind your own. When they stop believing you, they realize they have the power here. And so you will spend a lot of money to keep that symbol in place. And that makes sense. Within the context of Disney and art, well, that art is often how we perceive the world. So when corporations like Disney spend millions of dollars on their art, millions of dollars lobbying Congress to, voiceover note here by the way, to make it so Mickey can't be in the public domain and this art becomes massively popular, they almost shape our very planet, morphing how kids will grow up and what they will think, all while destroying the earth along the way with things like generative AI. What I see Knights of Guinevere materializing as is a rebellion. A rebellion against corporate greed through its story, yes, but also through its metastructure. Being an indie project from a creator who has extensively worked with Disney. It is a rebellion against the thousands of stories and symbols that tell the truth that anyone can be rich without ever given the proper context. Through its eventual and even current humanization of Guinevere, I see it as a rebellion against the idea of a symbol itself and an expression of art being free. In the end, it all comes back to Guinevere. But it doesn't have to be Guinevere the symbol. Instead, with your help, it could be Guinevere the person. And, as always, thank you for watching.